You notice someone across the camp. They are carrying a piece of meat from the morning hunt. Their movements are easy, confident. Your eyes follow them without deciding to. This is not a dating app. There is no profile, no swipe, no curated photograph taken in good light. There is no script for what comes next. There is only the fire, the group, and the slow, ancient pull of one person toward another. For roughly 300,000 years, this was how it began. Before marriage certificates, before dowries, before romantic comedies told you what love was supposed to feel like. Your ancestors were navigating attraction, rejection, jealousy, and desire with the same brain you are using right now. The same neurochemistry, the same irrational longing. The question is, what did they actually do about it? The first thing to understand is that your ancestors did not date in isolation. There was no such thing as a private romantic life. You lived in a band of roughly 25 to 50 people. Everyone knew everyone. Every glance was noticed. Every preference was social information. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist who has spent decades studying the neuroscience of romantic love, argues that the core drives behind human attraction, lust, romantic love, and long-term attachment are not cultural inventions. They are ancient biological systems, each running on different brain chemistry, each serving a different evolutionary function. These systems were fully operational in your ancestor's skull 300,000 years ago. The hardware has not changed, only the interface has. So what did attraction actually look like? It started with your body. Long before words, your ancestors used decoration. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found evidence dating back at least 100,000 years of ochre, a red iron-rich pigment, being deliberately ground, mixed, and applied. Shell beads were pierced and worn. Researcher Camilla Power has argued that this kind of body decoration was not random art. It was signaling. It was the ancient equivalent of wearing something that made you look good. Red ochre applied to skin, particularly by women at peak fertility, sent biological information to potential mates before a single word was exchanged. Your ancestors were advertising. They just used pigment instead of pixels. But attraction required more than appearance. Robin Dunbar, an evolutionary psychologist at Oxford, has proposed that human language itself evolved largely as a social bonding tool. In his 1998 work, he argued that gossip, talking about relationships, alliances, who likes whom, who betrayed whom, was the verbal equivalent of primate grooming. It built trust. It built closeness. And in the context of early human camps, it was almost certainly one of the primary tools of courtship. You talked someone into liking you. You always have. Polly Wiesner's landmark 2014 study, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, recorded conversations among the Jew/Hoansi Bushmen of southern Africa, one of the few remaining populations whose lifestyle offers a window into ancestral social patterns. She found something striking. During the day, conversations were dominated by practical matters. Work, food, tools. But at night, by firelight, the content shifted entirely. Stories, relationships, who was doing what with whom. Wiesner estimated that roughly 80% of nighttime firelight talk was social, and a significant portion of that was about romantic and sexual relationships. The campfire was not just a heat source. It was where your ancestors processed their feelings about each other. Richard Wrangham, a primatologist at Harvard, has argued in his 2009 book that fire fundamentally restructured human social life. The hearth became the center of the group. Food was shared there, children were raised there, and pairs formed there. Sitting beside someone at the fire, night after night, sharing warmth and food, was one of the most intimate things you could do. Pair bonding, the tendency of two individuals to maintain a sustained, preferential relationship, appears to have deep roots in early Homo sapiens, and the communal fire was almost certainly one of the places it was forged. But here is where it gets complicated. Christopher Ryan and Casilda Jetha, in their 2010 book Sex at Dawn, synthesized a wide body of anthropological and primate evidence to challenge the assumption that your ancestors were straightforwardly monogamous. They point to the anatomy of the human body, the behavior of our closest primate relatives, and cross-cultural studies of contemporary hunter-gatherer groups to argue that early human sexuality was considerably more fluid than modern Western norms suggest. This is a contested view. Many researchers push back. But what the evidence does seem to support is that rigid, legally enforced lifelong monogamy is a relatively recent cultural invention. What existed before it was something more negotiated, more flexible, more dependent on the specific dynamics of the group. Your ancestors did not have one model of relationship. They had many. See, Owen Lovejoy proposed in a highly influential 1981 paper in Science that food provisioning, a male bringing food specifically to a female and her offspring, was one of the key drivers of pair bonding in early hominins. This is sometimes called the provisioning hypothesis. The idea is that a sustained exchange of resources and protection, in return for sustained sexual and social partnership, laid the groundwork for what would eventually become something recognizable as a couple. Whether that couple was exclusive is a separate, deeply debated question. But the bond, the preference, the loyalty, the return appears to be genuinely ancient. What about rejection? There was no ghosting. You could not simply stop responding to someone's messages. In a band of 30 people, rejection had to be navigated face to face. Every day, the person you said no to was at the fire that night. They were hunting with your brother. They were friends with the person who gathered food alongside you. Samuel Bowles, an economist and evolutionary theorist, has shown that the intense social interdependence of early human groups created enormous pressure toward cooperation and social sensitivity. Reading other people's emotional states accurately, knowing when someone was upset, interested, withdrawn, or angry, was not just romantic intelligence. It was survival intelligence. Emotional literacy was not soft. It was essential, and desire did not always follow neat boundaries. Volker Sommer and Paul Vassey's comparative research across primate species documents that sexual and social behavior in animals closely related to humans spans a wide range of expressions, not all of them oriented toward reproduction. The assumption that early human sexuality was strictly heterosexual and strictly procreative does not survive contact with either the biological or the anthropological evidence. Human sexual psychology, like human social psychology, has always been complex. So let's reconstruct a moment. You have noticed the person from across the camp for several days now. You have positioned yourself near them at the fire. You have made sure they heard your best story, the one that got a laugh from the elder, the one that showed you understood how things worked. You have found small reasons to be useful near them. You have, in 100 invisible ways, been advertising. Last night, they sat beside you without being asked to. This morning, they brought you a portion of food before you asked. In a world without words for what this is, something is beginning. Not because of a rule, not because of a ceremony, because two humans with the same ancient brain you are carrying in your skull right now noticed each other, felt the pull, and moved toward it. Helen Fisher's neuroimaging research has shown that the brain regions that activate during early romantic love, the ventral tegmental area, the nucleus accumbens, are the same regions associated with motivation and reward. The same systems that make you want food, that make you pursue a goal. Romantic love in the brain looks less like an emotion and more like a drive, a hunger. Your ancestors were hungry for each other in exactly the way you are. The packaging has changed. The apps, the dates, the language of modern romance would be completely unrecognizable to a human living 300,000 years ago. But the pull, the noticing, the maneuvering, the fear of rejection, the electricity of being chosen, that has not changed at all. You still wake up and notice someone across the room. You still try in 100 small ways to make sure they notice you back. The campfire is just a different shape now.